Stygian Onslaught, the endgame mode we all thought we needed. Until we didn't. Question mark? It's been quite a while since I uploaded on this channel. I've long planned to return to YouTube, so I think I'll make my comeback here and give my 2 cents on the matter. Now, I had originally planned to release this video a week ago, but the script material is now outdated due to some misunderstandings I had about the game mode. Now that the dust has settled and we've seen everything we needed to see, I'm updating the script to accurately reflect the feature and give my honest review on the new endgame mode. So, Stygian Onslaught is the latest endgame mode, the third installment after Imaginarium Theater and the Spiral Abyss, and by far, I'd say it is the hardest game mode ever released. In terms of difficulty ceiling, it's not even close. Level 4 is around the ceiling of difficulty for most casual endgame players, but 5 and 6 take it to a whole new level that Spiral Abyss can't even imagine. Opinions on Stygian Onslaught have been quite varied. I've seen both positive and negative feedback alike, although I typically see the negative feedback far more often, so I will try my best to give an unbiased opinion on this, because I do believe there are reasons to be both optimistic and pessimistic about the future of Genshin gameplay following this release. So, let's talk about it. The first thing I want to talk about is the structure of the new game mode. It's not a mode unfamiliar to us. We are talking about a time challenge, and in this case, Stygian Onslaught feels like a middle ground between Imaginarium Theater and the Spiral Abyss, but familiarity doesn't necessarily mean good. You need to build 3 teams for 3 different bosses. This on its own requires more horizontal investment than the Spiral Abyss. Ideally, you'd have 12 characters fully built to clear, as opposed to 8 in the Spiral Abyss. Now, to make matters worse, the current lineup of bosses are also incredibly restrictive, with many elemental demands or restrictions, which really limits the types of teams you can build to clear with, at least for this cycle. So without even getting into the popular complaints about the HP inflation or the lackluster rewards, you can already tell I have some problems with this design. This isn't like the Spiral Abyss, where you can partially complete runs and collect stars on a per chamber basis. For Stygian Onslaught, you need to commit to a 3-team roster that can clear everything on their own. Now, this is all fine and dandy until you run into a super restrictive boss like the Secret Source Automaton. The Secret Source Automaton demands cryo attacks no matter what, ideally on-field cryo, which greatly cripples the team building potential for the boss. So for me, the problem isn't necessarily that the boss is hard or that there's a high DPS check. It's that it's a high DPS check forcing you to play into a very narrow selection of characters required to clear. A game mode that requires more characters overall should be less restrictive in terms of team building potential. Hopefully in future cycles, the enemy lineups change to allow more flexibility. Of course, I will also acknowledge that the HP pool is maybe a little too high, but I think this issue is tied to the design of the boss lineups. You'd either need to lower the HP pool so the restricted bosses like Secret Source doesn't feel as punishing to not have the premium characters like Skirk nor Escoffier, or you need to lift those restrictions so players can experiment and find the best DPS teams to meet those checks. But overall, I think the problem is fixable, so we'll just have to see what future cycles have in store for us. So now let's talk about the incentives, the other major talking point surrounding the game mode. For Stygian Onslaught, you have 4 main rewards for clearing. First and foremost is the Primo Gems, which is now the latest source of endgame Primo Gems, just like the Imaginarium Theater and the Spiral Abyss. 2, it is the only renewable source of the Dust of Enlightenment, which came out recently. Being the only artifact reroll tool, it is one of the most sought after items in the game. 3, there is a cosmetic weapon skin available for Super Whales, which most of us will not be able to obtain. And 4, you can use it to farm artifact domains, at least within the first 11 days of the release. It was only recently that I learned that you can no longer farm artifact domains after the initial 10-day release, which changes my review of the incentives quite a bit. The reward structure is decent enough though, I suppose. 450 Primo Gems per patch depending on whether it takes away one of the patch's limited time events. Hopefully this is just a one-time thing, and we will return to our regularly scheduled 420 Primogem event the next patch. But anyways, the Primogems are the easiest to claim out of any of the game modes I've seen. All it takes is one co-op session on level 3 with barely 4 minutes of gameplay, and there it is for the taking. The weapon cosmetic is only a temporary reward that lasts the remainder of the patch, and it has insanely high investment checks on your account that I don't think it's very much worth considering. Never mind the fact that the accounts who can claim the weapon rewards likely already have the character's signature weapons, and how some players like to pull 5-star weapons like Arlecchino's Scythe purely for stylistic reasons. It doesn't feel very enticing at all. But that may be a good thing, because we don't want a fanbase wanting a reward that is hopelessly out of their reach. The Dust of Enlightenment, however, I think is the prized possession of Stygian Onslaught. The faded artifact reroll tool we all wanted to see, the rarest resource in the game, with only 3 copies obtainable every patch cycle. 2 of those 3 copies can be claimed easily enough. Level 4 rewards support co-op gameplay, which means instead of requiring the 12 fully built characters in a team, you only need 3 with the help of your teammates. The second copy can be acquired through spending resin on the artifact grind available in the first 10-day phase. The third one, however, requires you to complete solo on level 5. And level 5 is a very demanding difficulty for anybody who's tried it. This is somewhat problematic, I think, because it feels more punishing to fail level 5 than it is to fail to 36 star the Spiral Abyss. For the Spiral Abyss, I've failed to 36 star in the past, but I wouldn't feel too bad because I'm only missing out on a small amount of Primogems. The Dust of Enlightenment, I'd say, is far more valuable than the fraction of a single wish you miss out on from 36 stars. A lot of people are rightfully upset about this, but I think the crux of the issue is the incredibly limited supply available in-game right now. By contrast, the Sanctifying Elixir has far greater accessibility through Artifact Transmuter, Natlan Exploration, Imaginarium Theater, and I imagine more sources will come in the future. So until the Dust of Enlightenment increases in supply, this will rightfully remain a sour spot for players. So, lastly is the Artifact Domain, or what is called the Disturbance Outbreak phase. I did originally consider this an objective upgrade over Artifact Domains. I originally thought that only the Dust of Enlightenment was claimable. I did not realize that all artifact farming would end. This is something that I'm absolutely not happy about at all. I thought it was great that artifact farming was consolidated into a single domain, especially for co-op. Before Stygian Onslaught, the best co-op mode was the Trounce domain. After the Disturbance Outbreak, the main incentive for Stygian Onslaught shifts to the one-time reward of the Dust of Enlightenment. I've seen many players shift their co-op to level 4, which has been quite fun so far, but I'm sure the demand will drop as we approach the tail end of the cycle. I'm not so fickle about the loss of bonus artifact rewards from Stygian Onslaught that you can just get through farming artifact domains. The problem here, I think, is the sparse incentive to play co-op for higher difficulties. Losing the resin expenditure aspect is a net negative for the mode, in my opinion. There is also still no incentive to play the level 5 difficulty for co-op, which is a shame because it has been quite fun the few times I did get a game going, and the potential is definitely there. Hopefully this paves the way for an expansion of the co-op experience. First off, I'd like to see the resin usage aspect be made permanent, or at least have the window last longer. And second, if artifact farming is getting consolidated through a game mode like this, then why not eventually expand for talent book and weapon material domains as well? So there's plenty of room for improvement for Stygian Onslaught as far as rewards are concerned, but considering this is Hoyoverse we're talking about, we'll just have to wait and see what they choose to do. So, to summarize, Stygian Onslaught I think is a step in the right direction for Endgame Genshin. Single player is the same as ever, but it brings great promise for co-op. Rewards unfortunately fall short of what I'd like for consistent engagement. They need to be expanded to address the criticisms that make it feel bad to play. Design-wise, I'd like to see less restrictive bosses in future lineups as to allow more creative team building. We shouldn't feel forced to play Skirk or Escoffier just to beat a boss. This, however, is a bigger problem in single player than it is in co-op, which, if you want single player to remain meaningful, then players need multiple avenues of success. So with that, we'll wrap up. Thanks for watching the video. Share your suggestions or thoughts about Stygian Onslaught down in the comments, and with that, this is goodbye for now.